This build is so powerful. I actually hit 10 million with a single hit. Get a bit of damage. Did I just see a 10? There's no way I saw 10 million then. Let's move me up. So I'm actually up here. It's 10 million! What?
Yeah, boy.
What? No way! Not only that, you can also solo tier 100 nightmare dungeons. Come check it out. So the footage here you can see is actually from a tier 100 nightmare dungeon. You can see that it's tier 100 because underneath the mini map it says so. This is me solo on this ice sork. It is hard. I am not gonna lie, to be able to solo in tier 100. Everything is a one shot. You've got to be careful and wait around for your cooldowns, but it is possible. You can deal a tremendous amount of damage. So let's have a look at me taking out this pack, and then I'll go over some of the build. You see some of the numbers we're hitting are actually like 1.5 million, 3.5 million, 4 millions with a single tick of ice shards. Now I'm just backing off for a minute to be able to wait for cooldowns and make sure things aren't immune to my CC. But once things are CC'd, you'll see the damage is actually crazy. There's an elite insta-dead. So this build, just like all my other builds, will be on Mobalytics as well. I highly recommend Mobalytics. You can even download the app and you can use it in game. It's absolutely fantastic. It will go on one side and then it allows you to change all your skills to the other side. You don't even have to alt tab out the game. You're able to see everything, but my one is on here. So this is Bentley's Endgame full DPS Ice Shards build. A bit of a mouthful, but kind of is what it is. You'll see here that it's got things like on the one hand, on the off hand, stats you go for. I use the two-hander here, so you can see like stat priorities and things that you would want. It's also got like a summary using like Fists of Fate is one that I've got here. You don't need to use this. I'll explain this later on in the video. But it's got some very, very good information, kind of everything you want here. And then the video is also going to be down here as well. So if you want to watch this video, you can actually get it straight from there. And the Paragon Board, they've just put in the Paragon Board system. And I'll go through all of this in game in a moment anyway. But there's a full overview of the Paragon Board. Nice and easy to see as well. So link for this down below. Go over the equipment. Here we've got the Frost Nova. Extra charge enhancement. That one's really nice. You're looking for things like cooldown reduction in your helmet. I've got crowd control duration, which is very strong for it. The max life and total armor are great if you're doing like maybe up to like tier 75 nightmare dungeons. Everything above that is kind of at the stage where you're basically getting one shot anyway. So they work for things that are lower, or if you're doing stuff on high level, it's amazing. But other than that, defense kind of goes out the window a bit. All right, so this is what we're also using, Railmen of the Infinite. So this is a unique. Obviously when you teleport, it pulls enemies in and stuns them. The stun here is super important for the aspect of control that we use, and I'll go over that in a moment. But this also gives you a rank in glass cannon, so that's even more damage pushing, because you just want to be like full glass cannon to be able to do like tier 100 nightmare dungeons. So with this as well, I'm using Fists of Fate. Your attacks randomly deal 1% to 290% of the normal damage. This one's actually a sacred one. I haven't got a unique one at the moment. But the most important thing from this, as well as being able to just hit like crazy numbers when the stars align, you know, because of what the unique actually does, is the fact that it has a lucky hit chance to immobilize. And immobilize is super important for our Devouring Blaze passive. Again, I'll go over that in a moment. To really ramp up the damage, because we want freeze, stun, and immobilize to hit big numbers, right? It's very important to be able to clear tier 100s, all right? So here we've got on the pants, we've got max health and damage reduction from close, damage reduction just by itself and from distant as well. And then we're using the protective one. So if you get hit and by some miracle you don't die, which occasionally does happen, then you actually manage to form that bubble that comes up, makes you immune, and you get like 4.5 seconds or so with the one that I've got to be able to just do a load of damage. So this can be good, but generally you get in one shot in these ridiculously high nightmare dungeons, right? Here on the boots, I have when you hit a crowd controlled enemy, there's up to a 50% chance that the crowd control effect spreads because CC is just so important. I've also got plus ranks to teleport, plus ranks to Frost Nova, movement speed, and intelligence. So these are about best in slot for me. Amazing ones. But yeah, Shared Misery is a good legendary aspect to have. On the weapon, big boy damage, Glorious Staff of Control. So we're using a two-hander here. We want the big damage. Two-handers have an implicit, which is at the top. You see like the 2,500 damage per second, a little bit down from that, plus 52.5% damage to crowd-controlled enemies is massive, and it ramps your damage up from 200, 300, 400k hits to over a million, even up towards 2 million plus, just from having a staff equipped. Also, it doubles the aspect of control, which is huge for us. So definitely take a two-hander and then put in some of the old green gems, the old emeralds, to be able to get the vulnerable damage. All right, so whack in some of those. Also, I forgot to mention gems on here. We got max life in these ones. All right. On my necklace, I have cooldown reduction, which is great. The mastery skills, which does a little bit for Blizzard for us, but unfortunately it's a bad roll, and I can't roll it off. But it's a little bit wasted, but it's okay. Plus 3 ranks to all defensive skills and 3 ranks of Devouring Blaze are massive. So this is a fantastic amulet. Just kind of one semi-wasted stat. And on here, we've got the Elementalists aspect. So core and mastery skills cast above 100 mana gain, in my case, 60% increased critical strike chance. This is solid, really strong. Definitely whack this on the amulet. It works a treat. Going to the ring, we're looking for critical damage, critical chance, lucky hit, and vulnerable. So that's quite good for that. You could take out the lucky hit chance and put in mana or like mana cost reduction. I think you can get that on rings. But anyway, max mana is a good one to have. So here I've got the Ice Shards, pierce 4 times, and then it deals less as it hits subsequent enemies. Very important aspect. Make sure you got that one on. And then on here, I've got vulnerable, crit, and then the max mana. So you can see it's very good there. Distant enemies have an 8% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds when they hit you. And you deal 34% increased damage to stunned enemies. So this also helps ramp up that damage to stunned enemies. You could try taking this one off if you're fed up with the mana being a bit on and off, because it can be a bit fickle if you have to keep firing like crazy. The idea is you do so much damage, you don't need to have insane mana supply, because with here you could take, for example, the Frozen Memories. So the Avalanche Key passive now applies to 1 additional cast. Sometimes I kind of hot swap these gloves, but yeah, they can be good, so you could try swapping that, but this gives you more damage, more burst damage. I did forget to go, however, on the weapon, I've got critical strike damage, I've got core skill damage, vulnerable damage, and intelligence. So these are quite big for two-handers. So it's quite a nice staff, 799 item level. Yeah, it definitely helps ramp up that damage. When it comes to the skill points, up here, I've got 1 point in Firebolt and 1 point in Frostbolt. I do hot swap the enchantment from Firebolt to Frostbolt when I have a boss, because you want to CC it really quickly, and then you can hot swap it back. You don't need to do that, but it is an efficient way to be able to kill a boss very quick. So you can just, for example, stick with Firebolt. You don't need to do that. It's me being a bit min-maxy. Here, we've got 5 points in Ice Shards coming down for the vulnerable. We've got a point in Devastation and 3 points in Elemental Dominance. So with the defensive skills, 1 point into Flame Shield. The rest is done by like my necklace and my boots to boost this up. 1 point into Teleport coming over for the damage reduction. I've got 3 points into Glass Cannon plus the unique chest. I've got here 1 point in Ice Armor, and then I've got the extra mana. You don't exactly need to have that. It can be useful for if you need to take out, for example, like structures, because they take forever in like tier 100. So it can be useful, just get a bit of extra mana. But you could move that point around. It's kind of free. I actually do pump a couple points here into Frost Nova. So I get 4 points from my boots. I get 3 points from my necklace, bringing us up to 7. And then I've put 3 points into it myself, bringing us up to 10. You can, for example, take a point out of here, go up to 11. You could take that one out, go up to 12 to be able to get Frost Nova back quicker, because it is very important to have. But from tweaking, I found that this is working okay for me, and then I'm just kind of waiting for cooldowns and stuff anyway, so it does work there. Lastly here, I put Elemental Attunement. Lucky hits and critical strikes have a 10% chance to then reset one of your defensive cooldowns. If this happens to proc on like Flame Shield, it can save a life in a Nightmare dungeon to be able to give you an extra go of it, or you know, teleport to be able to get away a bit more. Frost Nova, you know, you get the idea. It's actually quite useful, so I end up putting 2 points in it. Over here, we've got Precision Magic. You definitely want those lucky hit chances. And then we're coming into a little bit of protection. You don't need loads of it. This is mainly for like just having a barrier to be able to have like extra chance to lucky hit while you have a barrier. My build doesn't have that in the minute. I've just recently changed on my necklaces. Your build might have that. If you don't think that you need it, take it out. But again, for doing like content more on eye level, then it's very good to have like protection in, just to be able to tank like an extra hit from a little guy or a ranged guy. So it can be very, very useful. Again, potential to hot swap there a little bit if you like. Coming down here, we've got Icy Veil and Snap Freeze. Snap Freeze is very important for high-level dungeons because it just allows you, if you've got like a couple of little spiders or something just like chasing you down very quickly, you can fire off a couple of ice shards and see if you get that chance to just like freeze them, especially if you've burnt, for example, your 2 charges of Frost Nova. So this is very, very useful like all the time. Okay, so it's very, very good. Here I've put a point into Blizzard, and then I've gone up to Mage's Blizzard. Blizzard is amazing just to be able to put down if things again are chasing you can slow. Very good for the slow. We're not really using it in too many ways at real high end to be able to just like do like damage or anything like that. I'm just solely really using this to slow enemies down, potentially freeze something. Snap Freeze can proc as well. So yeah, it just helps you be able to get away, because again, one hit you're dead from like anything. So you just need to be able to like slow things down and get away. Here we've got 1 point in the Flames, 3 point in Devouring Blaze. This is why I was saying that we want to have Immobilize in the build, right? Because my necklace puts this up to 6 points. You deal 60% increased critical strike damage to burning enemies. If they are also immobilized, this is increased to 150%. So when you get that lucky hit proc from the Fist of Fates, your damage goes up through the roof. And this is how I'm able to hit like 7 millions and stuff with a single tick of ice shards. Bear in mind, obviously it fires like a machine gun. You can hit like multiple 7.5 millions and stuff because of Devouring Blaze once you immobilize them. And also as well, like, you have quite a high lucky hit chance from teleport. So you can teleport in, it brings things in, stuns them. Sometimes they're also immobilized as well. You whack on your Frost Nova, so they're all 3 kinds of CC'd, and you do tremendous damage. It is actually wild. Coming down, we've got Permafrost, Icy Touch, Frigid Breeze, and Hoarfrost. You want to take all of those, max all of those. They're all really, really good. And then we have Avalanche. This is so we have some Mana Sustain. That's the skills. For the Paragon Board, very important in the Paragon Board. This does a lot for our damage. Okay, so here on the starter board, we have Elementalist. So this gives us extra damage if we do like Fire, Cold, and Lightning. Teleports lightning. Obviously, we're doing cold damage. And we make things burn with our enchantments. So I'll just go over the enchantments in a moment. So yeah, we want to be picking up this. It also boosts like our non-physical damage. So we're grabbing those, okay? Up from here, we are taking the Burning Instinct board. And then put it down to the glyphs to the bottom right and take Destruction. This is for extra core damage, critical strike damage. So, or core skill, critical strike damage, I should say. Here we are picking up like Cinders, Smoldering Embers. These are very good. I've also come up here for Safeguard, so damage reduction from elites. Again, doing content are kind of more towards on eye level, 10 levels above you, like very good. There's even another point there that you could take if you want to take out a bit of damage. And then through here, Kindling is extra damage to burning, extra damage to burning, extra damage to elite. So these are quite good ones here. Coming over on the right-hand side, we are taking Frigid Fate. This is a fantastic board for us. Swing it down so the glyph socket is just in front of yourself here. And now we're taking Tactician. This is going to be giving extra vulnerable damage because it gives a buff to your rare nodes. And here we have extra vulnerable damage. So extra bit of intelligence, cold resistance, whatever, but it works out quite well there. You deal 10% increased damage after you cast a defensive skill, and we're always casting defensive skills, so we've always got that 10% extra damage going. So it's a very nice node to put in here, and you don't need to take up that much dexterity to be able to activate it. So it's all good there. As I said, come down here for oppressive. This is all to do with vulnerable damage stuff. It's fantastic. Head on up here. We have lucky hit chance. Want to be grabbing those bad boys. And then the frigid fate. This is also dealing damage to vulnerable enemies. Increase your lucky hit chance. Again, we need that lucky hit chance. Over here, we've got guarded, which is damage reduction from vulnerable. Coming up, Elemental Summoner. So Elemental Summoner, we're going to be taking Exploit. This is extra vulnerable damage. It is absolutely huge. So we're basically taking things over here. We've got this like Conjure stuff. It's not really about that. This is more of a pass through because we want to get these dexterity. You can see that it's like 7 dexterity, 4.3 vulnerable damage. So we're just taking the vulnerable damage buffs on this. So I've got 34 dex in here. Then we're going to be coming up to both left and right. So we've got Keeper of Elements, which is going to boost on non-physical damage. And then Reservoir, which is going to give us a bit of extra max mana. So here we've got 4, 8, 12 max mana, plus another 8. And I don't have enough willpower for the extra bit, but it's fine. It's absolutely fine. On the left-hand side, we have Searing Heat board. Searing Heat allows us to pop in here Flame Feeder. It's quite good for dexterity, so we're going to be doing extra damage to burning enemies. And then down here, we are taking critical strike damage. So this is really, really big here. Critical strike damage. We've got fire damage and more critical strike damage. These nodes here are very powerful indeed. So highly recommend this board. And then over on the right-hand side, we are taking Static Surge board. So this one here, we've got Control, deals extra damage to crowd-controlled enemies, and this is how we kill things with Sorc. We have down here like a bit of extra max mana and damage to stunned. So that's a very, very powerful one. My intelligence is very high, so I've managed to actually get the full 30% damage to stunned enemies, 8 more max mana. And then we're also taking Incapacitate, which is going to give us more damage to stunned enemies, as well as like a bit of extra dex and stunned enemies here. So you can see it's a lot of damage to like stunned, a lot of damage to stunned, damage to vulnerable, damage with vulnerable, all that jazz. Very, very strong Paragon board here. So links and everything obviously down below. When it comes to enchantments, we're going to be running the Firebolt enchantment to make everything set on fire, so we can actually make use of the Devouring Blaze passive. And we're also going to be using Flame Shield enchantment for that cheat death, because as I said, pushing tier 100 Nightmare dungeons, everything one-shots you. So this really does save your life when you're especially when you're solo, and you've only got 4 revives left. So this could be very good if you're super confident, or you're doing lower tier dungeons, for example. Then definitely put on Ice Shards if you're trying to speed farm stuff with this build, or you're just doing things more like on eye level and things like that. Enemies are more like your level, then definitely use the Ice Shards one to be able to like jump in, freeze, and just like kill everything. Super strong there. So the other combination I do when I'm going to fight a boss is sometimes, this is a bit more min-maxy, but I like to hot swap in Frostbolt, because Frostbolt dealing direct damage applies chill, so it makes everything do a bit more chill, which is a form of CC, which builds up the boss's stagger bar, because when you're fighting a boss, the best way to kill them, teleport on, it does a stun. Remember, you got lucky hit chance with Fist of Fate to immobilize. You've also got Frost Nova. These are all going to build up CC. And then you got Blizzard, which does chill. You do that. So you hot swap this on, do a load of stuff at the boss. You watch that stagger bar build up really quickly. And then when it's just about to be staggered, you hot swap this one back in, and then do something to stagger it, and then deal tons of damage. You'll see the bosses are literally just like disintegrate in front of you. So that's the way to kill bosses with the build. If you don't want to hot swap whatever, then you could just keep this on. It's fine. The other thing I wanted to mention as well with Blizzard, you can actually swap this one in and out. So you can take the points out of Blizzard and you can put them into Deep Freeze. So if you want to have more invincibility or you just prefer the skill, you can use it. If you don't want to have like the slow and things, which I find very useful. Also, as I said, for like staggering bosses, very useful to be able to just like put loads of blizzards down, burn your mana that way to be able to get the stagger. But you can swap this for deep freeze. You can even do it mid-dungeon if you want. So use what you prefer out of those. So that's the build, guys. It is massive in terms of damage. Let me know what you think of this down below. It is a end game build. This is something that you should be aiming to get in the long run. Obviously, I'm level 100 with this. Just want to go over some of the extra items I have for doing different things, because this specific build and setup with the two-handed staff is more for doing like the extremely high-end nightmare dungeons, kind of 90 plus, and also for flexing on your friends because you'll be doing so much more damage than all of them. But also here I have these two. So I have an offhand and a wand. This, it gives, basically allows you to have lower cooldowns because you've got cooldown reduction twice on an offhand if you get one like I've got here. Just gonna kind of like skim over this, but this is basically if I'm soloing and I want to push things fast and I come down to maybe like tier 60 or 65 kind of nightmare dungeons to just like level up some glyphs very quickly, then I generally tend to go around. I don't need the damage from like this. I'll go around wearing these so I've got extra cooldown reduction so I can do it faster. So this is kind of stuff that I use for like more like speed running. Also, if you don't have Fist of Fate, or you don't or you find that you don't like the inconsistency of the damage, then I do have, for example, like these gloves. All right, so here I have plus ranks to ice shards, lucky hit chance, critical strike chance, and attack speed, which is very good. But I've also then allows you to put on the avalanche key passive to be able to get the one additional cast. So a bit of extra information there. I actually, for example, have another pair of gloves. It's going to confuse everybody. Again, it's the same kind of stuff, right? It's got ice shards rank, actually better than my other ones, lucky hit chance, critical strike chance, but this one also has lucky hit up to 5% chance to restore extra primary resource. Yeah, so if you don't have Fist of Fate, you don't need them to do tier 100. It's just you have more consistent damage, but you won't see numbers quite like 7.5 million, stuff like that, because you're not really going to be getting that immobilized. So you're not going to make so much use of the Devouring Blaze passive, but it's still very strong and it's still very doable, and you have better mana control. So consider something like that if your luck is bad with Fist of Fate. If you don't have stun and you don't have raiment, for example, then you might struggle a little bit to get like the big numbers in the big endgame dungeons, like the tier 90s plus. But yeah, because you really need to get all those crowd controls to hit those huge numbers. It's just the way Sorc is. It can be a bit frustrating, but it is what it is. So you guys, let me know what you think of this build down below. Remember, if you like it, like, sub, and join me live on Twitch. You can watch me do tier 100s. They are really fun, but they're also really hard. So until next one, guys, really appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.